So welcome back to the channel, guys. We are again working on my brother's 2016 WRX, getting this car some more performance parts, and today we're working with MST Performance. Now, you probably haven't heard of them before if you're watching this and you're part of the WRX or STI community, but we installed a lot of these products on BMWs, and they are a pretty good brand. The quality is very good. The finish is always really nice on the parts, and I've been working with this brand for a while. So I was looking online, and I don't think there's any other installation guides. I don't even know if there's written guides for this car yet. So if you're seeing this, definitely check out the link down in the description where we'll have this product, and we appreciate it when you do purchase through our links. But we're gonna show you how to install this in the car. They claim a lot of horsepower and torque from this, but as with any intake claims, I always take them with a grain of salt, but it should make the car sound a lot better and probably a little bit of a performance gain. First, we're going to remove the air intake box. You have two push pins right here. There's a little pry tool. Get those out. Like a pry tool like this. We'll have that linked. All right. And then this will just pull out towards the front and up and out. Disconnect your mass airflow sensor on your intake. I like to take a pick tool, slide it underneath, and then that'll release. Now we have a 10mm nut right here we need to remove. And we have a 10mm bolt right down here. Now, as far as I know, this intake box has never been removed from the car. My brother got this new, and the hose clamp is facing straight down, so we can't disconnect the airbox from that hose clamp in its current position. So what we're gonna do is flip these two top latches, and we're gonna separate the box here. And this is the original air filter that is shot. And with that, we can pull this out. And now, I'm gonna pull this up and out, and now we can get a tool onto that hose clamp there to remove this. The hose coupling going onto the airbox is very snug. If you've replaced your charge pipe on the car, you'll know that it's kind of a pain. So just work your way around with like a screwdriver. Spread that gap a little bit, and it will come off. All right, there we go. All right, now we need to access the lower part of the intake that runs into your turbo. So we're gonna remove the belly pan. It's held by a whole bunch of push pins. There's some on the side as well. And there's two 12mm bolts you need to remove. Now go ahead and loosen the hose clamp that holds in the bottom of your intake into the turbo inlet right there. It's an 8mm socket. There you go. Now we need to remove the 10mm nut that's holding the lower intake to this bracket. And just to get it out easier, I'm going to remove this 8mm hose clamp right there. I'm going to take a screwdriver and just work it off. Just over time, the heat, I think, kind of like adheres the rubber to the plastic. Just go around and break that seal. Comes off. There we go. Now we're ready to put in the lower silicone coupler. This looks symmetrical, but it's actually not. One end is too large for this. This is the end that goes for the intake, so the larger end is going to go towards the turbo. All right, so we take this and we're going to reuse your original clamp here. All right. Now, I'm going to leave this loose temporarily until we get everything lined up top. Now we're going to be reusing this stud and nut with your new intake, so take a 10mm and remove this. So we went ahead and reinstalled this spacer, the nut and bolt right there, and we can do this right from the top with a little 10mm ratchet wrench. Then we're going to transfer over the MAF's airflow sensor. It's held in by 2 Phillips screws. The kit includes new hardware to mount this. There we go. Install the MAF's airflow sensor into the new pipe. It will only go in one way. If you flip it around, the bolts will not line up. Now, if you're looking at the hardware, all of the bolts except for one are short. This one longer one is used in a specific location, so make sure you're not using that. Take the included washers and the shorter bolts and tighten these down with a 3mm Allen key. Now, because the mass airflow sensor is being relocated, they include this extension cable. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in right there. I'm going to go ahead and pre-install the air intake on the pipe. And I'm orienting it out this way so that once it's installed, it's easy to access the filter. So we're going to reuse one of the OEM clamps here as well. I'm just going to pre-tighten that down onto this silicone coupling so that it's not slipping around. Now we're going to reinstall the second nut that goes into the stud that was holding the old intake pipe in place. All right, snug both of those up, and you're going to want to snug up the nut on that stud first because it's going to pull that upper pipe into the silicone further and then tighten up the hose clamp. Now we're going to take the extension that comes with your kit and wrap it around behind the intake. And we're going to plug that in right up here, just like so. Now your new intake system is actually going to mount using this grounding bolt that's right here. We've already loosened it a little bit, but it's a 10mm. I'm just going to finish removing that the whole way. And make sure when you reinstall this that you do reattach that grounding wire. The new intake is also going to utilize this bracket right here, so we're going to remove the 2 nuts that hold it in place. Now you're going to take the largest piece of the air box that's included, and this hole right here is going to line up with that grounding bolt that we just removed. And you're going to want to install the grounding bolt on the outside of the box. Also, up in this corner, you're going to want to line up with this hole right here, which is threaded and we're going to be using. Take that grounding bolt that we just removed. And again, you want the grounding wire on the outside. You want it making contact with the bolt, because the bolt making contact with the grounding wire and then making contact with the frame of the vehicle is what is grounding it. Now we're going to leave this loose until we have everything else lined up. Now if you remember at the very beginning of this installation, we removed this bolt from the stock airbox. It was actually mounted right down there. and we are going to be reusing that bolt right now. So right up here on the side, you're going to notice you have a hole in the intake box, and that lines up with the threaded hole that's already in the frame. So this is pretty ingenious that they thought to reuse this bolt right here. They definitely take advantage of reusing the stock hardware that they can. So this is a 10mm bolt, and we're just going to thread that in. Now before fully tightening this bolt or the one that's holding in the grounding strap, you're going to want to fit this piece and make sure it lines up. So slide your box top in, all right? And then you're going to be taking advantage of this hole right down there. So what you want to do is make sure that these two holes right here and this hole down there pretty much line up. So I'm pretty happy with roughly where that is right there, so we're going to give that a shot. Now that we have that top bolt installed, I'm going to go back and snug up this bottom bolt. Now we're going to reuse the bracket really as like a big washer to hold this on here. Now if you wanted to, you could either get a really big washer to use, or you could also cut the front part of the bracket off. However, I'm just going to reinstall the whole thing. In case someone ever wants to revert to stock, you have the option of doing so with this. Now I'm going to leave those nuts loose until we get everything lined up top. I'm going to use a little swivel to get to these two nuts with the ratchet. Now we're going to take 3 of our little bolts that are included and the washers. All right, now we're going to take this piece right here. And again, just loosely start the bolts until we get everything lined up. We're going to take that one bolt that was longer that I mentioned earlier, and there's an included locking nut, the smallest one I've ever seen, and we're going to go through this hole right here. Now you're going to want to take a 7mm socket, put that on that little nut, and then tighten this down. There you go. Now we can secure all these top ones again. All right, with just these outer ones removed here, we can just lift that up enough to slide the air take box back in place. Now reinstall the front push pin. All right, guys, that's the installation pretty much done. We do have to go back underneath and tighten up that one hose clamp that we left loose, and then obviously reinstall the belly pan. Now, I have to say that this intake is solid. Once it was in there and all tightened up, it was not moving at all. So that's definitely a plus for this box. And I do like how they kind of filled in that one gap that wouldn't otherwise sit between the air intake scoop and the side of the car. So it looks like a much more finished and complete solution. So all in all, definitely a solid intake. Can't wait to hear how it sounds. Before we do that, we have some other mods to put on this car, and then we're getting it pro-tuned, and then we'll definitely have some sound clips for you guys in an upcoming video. So be sure to come back and check that out. As always, parts will be down in the description as well as some of the tools that we used in this video. And when you do go through those, we really appreciate it. Want to give a thanks to Keys Motorsports for giving this intake to my brother for us to make this video. So thank you, Brian, over at Keys. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you guys back here next time. Have a lot more content coming on the Subi. And we have a lot of stuff already up on the channel, a lot of DIYs, maintenance items, as well as some upgrades. So be sure to check those out. Thanks, guys. See you next time.